The kingdom of Eldrosia stood grand and proud, with towers that touched the morning mist and walls carved with the stories of old kings. Yet behind all the beauty and gold, behind the echoing halls and warm torches, there was one truth the royal family never spoke aloud, a truth hidden in the highest part of the palace. An attic no one was allowed to enter, and inside that attic lived a girl the kingdom did not know existed. Her name was Serenia. She had lived there since childhood, in a quiet space filled with dusty books, cracked wooden beams, and a single window that looked out at the moon. The room was small, but she had made it feel like a world of her own. She arranged old blankets into a soft corner where she could sit and read. She kept a collection of feathers, stones, and tiny broken trinkets she picked off the attic floor. She often imagined what stories they carried, because imagining was the only freedom she truly had. Serenia had long white hair that shimmered faintly when moonlight touched it, and eyes that seemed too deep for someone her age. Whenever she felt strong emotions, fear, anger, or sadness, the shadows around her reacted. They trembled. They shifted. Sometimes they curled gently at her feet like quiet animals. This strange gift or curse was the reason she lived in secret. The king called her dangerous. The queen called her a mistake of fate. And so Serenia became a whisper hidden from the world. She had learned to live with her loneliness. She read, she dreamt, she watched the palace gardens from her window at night, wondering how the wind felt on open skin. But sometimes when the moon was full, she pressed her hand against the glass and whispered into the night, "Is someone out there thinking about me too?" She didn't expect an answer. She didn't expect anyone to ever climb those stairs. But fate, patient and silent, had already begun to move. Far beyond Eldrosia's borders, in a land where the sky was always dim and the nights longer than the days, lived a man whose name made kingdoms fall quiet, Balakar, the alpha vampire. He was feared for his strength, respected for his rule, and known for the cold calm in his voice. But for the first time in centuries, something stronger than any sword threatened him. He was dying. A curse had taken hold of his heart, slow, heavy, and ancient. His body weakened each night, his pulse fading like a candle in deep wind. His people whispered that he would not survive until next winter. Balakar refused to accept that fate. The old seers of his clan told him of a prophecy. A girl hidden above a throne, whom shadows obey, will be the answer you seek. She can save you or destroy you. Balakar did not trust prophecies, but he trusted his instincts, and something inside him, something old, deep, and primal, pulled him toward Eldrosia. He traveled for days, ignoring the pain growing in his chest. He crossed forests, rivers, and dusty roads until the tall silver-tipped towers of Eldrosia rose before him like quiet giants. He needed no permission to enter. When night fell, he used the shadows to slip past guards, past locked doors, past sleeping halls. His senses guided him. His heartbeat quickened the closer he came to the highest part of the palace until he reached the forbidden staircase. The same staircase no one had climbed for years. Balakar placed his hand on the wooden railing. It was cold, untouched, almost lonely. A strange feeling tugged at him, an odd mix of fear and familiarity. His voice, usually hard as iron, softened into a whisper. "She is here." He climbed. Serenia sat by her window that night, brushing her long hair with a simple wooden comb. She hummed softly, a melody she had made up over the years. The attic was peaceful, silent except for the faint sound of wind outside. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, steady. Her hand froze mid-air. No one ever came up the staircase. Even the servants were ordered never to approach this part of the palace. The shadows around her stirred nervously. Serenia stood, heart pounding hard enough to hurt her chest. The footsteps stopped right outside the attic door. The handle turned. The door opened with a soft creak. A tall figure stepped into the moonlit room. Serenia gasped and took a step back, her grip tightening on the comb. The man had black hair that fell around his shoulders like a storm, and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Not with cruelty, but with something ancient and powerful. His clothes were dark, travel-worn, and his breath came out slightly uneven, as if he carried an invisible weight. For the first time in her life, Serenia looked at someone who was not afraid of her, and Valakar, expecting a dangerous sorceress, found instead a young woman with gentle eyes and quiet strength in her posture. Their gazes locked. Something old and deep stirred between them. It felt as if two forgotten halves of a story had finally found each other again. Valakar spoke first, his voice low. You are real, Serenia swallowed. Who are you? He took a step forward, though slowly, as if afraid of startling her. My name is Valakar. The Alpha Vampire, she whispered, recognizing the stories she had read. He expected her to fear him, to scream, to hide, but she only watched him with cautious curiosity. Serenia noticed the slight pain in his posture. You're hurt, she said softly. Valakar looked surprised. How did you? I can feel it, she said, placing a hand against her chest, as if the ache inside his heart echoed in hers. Her shadows curled gently beneath her feet. He stared at her, understanding now why the prophecy had led him here. His curse had reacted to her presence from the moment he reached the palace. You're the one, he whispered. Serenia shook her head. I don't even know who I am. You will, Valakar said, voice firm. You're more than what they told you, more than what they hid. Before Serenia could speak, shouts erupted below. Guards. Alarmed voices. The king must have sensed Valakar's presence inside the palace. Serenia's face drained of color. They'll hurt you, Valakar smirked faintly. They can try. But Serenia stepped forward, shadows trembling around her. Please, don't fight them. They'll blame me. Something in her plea, so soft, so genuine, made Valakar pause. Before he could answer, the attic door burst open again. Guards rushed inside with spears drawn. There, protect the princess, princess. The word struck Serenia like a stone. They had never called her that before. The guards aimed their weapons at Valakar. Monster, leave her at once. Serenia stepped between them without thinking. Stop. But her emotions were too strong. The shadows exploded like a silent storm. They surged across the room, spiraling around her like dark ribbons. The guards backed away in terror as the shadows pushed them toward the walls, gentle yet unyielding. Everyone saw. Everyone understood. The secret was out. Valakar watched Serenia in awe, not fear. Her power was not wild, it was beautiful, controlled by a heart too soft for its weight. More guards entered. A captain shouted, "Take the girl! Before she loses control!" "No!" Serenia cried, but they grabbed her arms and dragged her away from the vampire. The shadows tried to protect her, but the guards carried blessed chains, forcing the shadows back. Valakar moved to help her, but an arrow blessed with silver struck his shoulder. Another fired at his leg. His strength faltered. Still, he reached out toward her. Serenia reached back, tears in her eyes. "Why did you come?" she whispered. Valakar's voice was weak but steady. "To find you." He lost his balance and fell through the broken attic wall, crashing down into the darkness below. Serenia screamed his name, but the chains pulled her back. The guards dragged her down the stairs as she fought to breathe. That night, thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the palace windows. And in the cold silence of her new prison cell, Serenia heard a whisper in the shadows, a whisper that was not her own. The cell where Serenia woke was small, cold, and made of thick stone. A single candle burned on the wall, its flame wavering every time she breathed. Her wrists were marked with faint red lines where the guards had held her too tightly. But it was not the chains or the darkness that frightened her. It was the thought that Valakar might be dead. She sat against the wall, pulling her knees close. The shadows lay around her like silent animals, trembling every time she remembered the moment he fell from the attic. "Please," she whispered into the silence, "let him be alive." The shadows stirred gently, almost comforting her. They whispered soft words she could not fully understand, as if trying to calm her trembling heart. Hours passed. Footsteps approached, echoing down the corridor, slow and heavy. The door unlocked, and to her shock the queen entered, wrapped in a long pale cloak, her face tired and sad. "Serenia," the queen whispered, a name she had not spoken aloud in years. Serenia stood slowly. "Why am I here? Why did you treat me like a secret all my life?" The queen hesitated. She looked down, guilt tightening her face. "You were kept in the attic," she said softly, "to protect the kingdom, and to protect you from yourself." Serenia stared in disbelief. "Protect me from what?" I would never hurt anyone. The queen closed her eyes. You were born with ancient magic. Magic that reacts to your heart. The night we found you as a baby, the shadows themselves carried you to our door. The king feared that power. He feared the prophecy about you. What prophecy? Serenia asked sharply. That one day your emotions would awaken a force strong enough to change the world's balance. The queen looked up, eyes shining with regret. We thought hiding you was the only way to stop that future. Serenia felt a soft ache in her chest. You could have raised me, taught me, loved me. The queen's voice cracked. I know, and I am sorry. But apology could not erase years of loneliness. Before Serenia could reply, a messenger rushed in breathlessly. Your Majesty, the northern border has fallen. The vampire clans marched toward Eldrosia. Serenia's heart jolted. Valakar? The messenger shook his head. No one knows if he lives. But the clans believe their ruler was harmed here. They demand justice. Serenia closed her eyes as a wave of fear washed over her. If Valakar was alive, he would come. If he was dead, his people would destroy the kingdom. Either way, she was part of this storm. She looked at the queen. Let me go. I can help stop this. You cannot stop a war, the queen whispered. Serenia took a deep breath and let the shadows rise behind her like gentle wings. I must try. Night fell heavy over the land as Valakar's army drew closer. Their torches glowed like a river of fire moving through the dark. Inside the palace, chaos filled every room, but Serenia felt strangely calm. The shadows guided her out of the cell, through the halls, past guards who were too distracted by the looming war to notice her. The moment she stepped into the moonlit corridor, a familiar presence brushed against her senses, cold, faint, but alive. Her heart raced. Valakar, she whispered. Without thought, she ran through the palace, the shadows lighting her way like soft lanterns. She reached the outer courtyard just as the palace doors burst open. A tall figure stepped in, wounded, pale, breathing hard, but unmistakably alive. Valakar. His eyes found her instantly, filled with a mix of relief and pain. He took a shaky step toward her as if drawn by something deeper than instinct. You're safe, he breathed. Serenia's heart trembled. I feared you were gone. I almost was, he admitted, but something kept pulling me back. Something I didn't understand until now. He looked at her with a kind of quiet awe. You. Before she could speak, guards surrounded them with weapons raised. Stay away from her, the captain shouted. Valakar tensed, ready to fight despite his weakness. Serenia stepped between him and the guards. Stop, he's not here to harm me. He led an army to our border. The captain shouted. Valakar's voice was tired but firm. I came alone. The army came on their own, believing I was captured. They will attack if I do not return. Serenia turned to him. Then we must go. Valakar hesitated. If you leave the palace, your life will change forever. Are you ready for that? She looked at the stone walls around her, the place that had held her like a quiet prison. I was never free here, she said softly. I want to find out who I am. And I think you know part of that truth. Valakar's eyes softened. Then come with me. They left the palace under the cover of shadows, moving into the enchanted forest that bordered the kingdom. The trees were tall and silver-barked, whispering in the night wind. Strange lights floated between branches like wandering stars. In the clearing ahead, Valakar stumbled. Serenia rushed to steady him. You're hurt, she said. The curse, he murmured. It grows worse. Serenia helped him sit against a tree. Tell me how I can help. Valakar looked at her, pain and longing mixing in his eyes. Your presence already slows the curse. But there is more. He hesitated, then continued. The prophecy says your magic and mine are connected, that you can heal me if you choose to bind your soul to mine. Serenia's breath caught. Bind forever? He nodded. It would not hurt you, but it would change us both. Our powers, our lives, our futures. She sat beside him, unsure. Why me? Valakar looked at her with gentle honesty. Because the shadows listen to you. Because your heart is stronger than your fear. Because even in that attic you did not let your loneliness turn you bitter. His voice softened. And because from the moment I saw you, something inside me recognized you. Serenia felt warmth rise in her chest. His words were simple, but they touched the deepest part of her. Still, doubt lingered. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "You will not," he said softly. "Not with your heart." Before she could answer, a deep roar echoed across the forest. The vampire clans had reached the kingdom. Belkar tried to stand, but his body shook. "If I do not return soon, they will attack." Serenia placed her hand over his. "Then we go together." The battlefield stretched across the plains like a sea of fire and steel. The vampire clans stood ready, their armor reflecting the red glow of the torches. The human army lined the palace walls, bows drawn. It was moments from becoming a war. Serenia stepped forward, shadows spiraling gently around her ankles. The armies gasped in confusion. Many had never seen someone like her. Valakar walked beside her, weak but standing tall. "Your ruler is here," Serenia shouted, her voice stronger than she expected. "He lives, and he does not wish for war." The clans murmured in surprise. Valakar raised his hand, breath trembling from strain. "Stand down. There will be no battle tonight." Relief rippled through both sides, but then Valakar collapsed to his knees. Serenia caught him. The curse had reached its final moment. He whispered weakly, "Serenia, if you want to save me, you must decide now." She looked at the armies, at the frightened faces, at Valakar's fading eyes. Then she made her choice. Serenia placed her hand over his heart. "I choose you." The shadows surged around them like a storm, but this time light burst through the center, soft, warm, golden white. Their powers met, mingled, and became something new. Belkar gasped as the curse shattered like broken glass. Serenia felt ancient energy fill her, not painful but empowering, like breathing for the first time. When the light faded, they were changed, connected by a bond deeper than words. The armies lowered their weapons, stunned. Peace had been born from the union of shadow and night, but as the ground trembled beneath Serenia's feet, a deep crack split open across the earth. A voice rose from the darkness below, old, powerful, echoing like the beginning of time. "Child of shadow and dawn, your true story begins now." Serenia's heart froze. Valakar stepped protectively in front of her, eyes scanning the glowing crack, and together they stared into the unknown, knowing the world had just awakened a force waiting for her.